You're watching the Matt to Matt Show. Let's move quickly on to Bitcoin. I don't know if you guys have watched Bitcoin the last couple of days, last couple of weeks. It's actually been doing weird things for a while now.
Weird things like going up.
Weird things like going up and then going down.
Sharply.
Going
lost
up
20% of its price.
It's not like volatile or anything.
No, that's the that's like the definition of volatile. You're gonna look in a dictionary and see Bitcoin as an example. Shortly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Matt wanted me to talk about if it is a bubble. So
Is it though?
take a short poll.
Yeah, let us know what you guys think. Just for those who don't know, as far as financial goes, what a bubble technically is. I know we've all heard the term. What is a bubble? Briefly.
Depends who you ask.
Something that pops.
If I ask you.
Well, we heard about the housing bubble.
Yes. What was
Right, the housing bubble. Well, it's easier to talk about the characteristics of a bubble. What characterizes bubbles? People buying things with the greater fool hypothesis. The idea that you don't want to hold on to it. A, as money to be used, or B, because you want it for its own value. The greater fool hypothesis is theory, rather I should be saying theory. The greater fool theory, because it's catchier, is that I'm going to buy it with the expectation of selling it for a higher price.
To a greater fool?
To a greater fool,
Okay,
who will in turn buy it just for that, on that basis alone. So, I think the technology behind Bitcoin is more valuable than Bitcoin itself, because similar to how Apple was the first computer, had the first PC, it brought in a new idea that was very valuable and we've built on, but it isn't the best version of itself. Bitcoin isn't the best.
Yes. Apple is not the best version of itself. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I can get resounding agreement from that, but just that its properties can be improved on, and Joe knows more about the technical details of it, but I'm imagining as Bitcoin was the first or one of the first that got the most attention, it's not sleek yet, like the PCs we have now wouldn't compare to the PCs that came out originally.
You mean the PCs that came out originally wouldn't compare to the PCs?
Well, either of them wouldn't compare to the other. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And people who have a vested interest in the current, like, what?
It seems like you're saying cryptocurrency is a big deal, but Bitcoin specifically being the first cryptocurrency is kind of being just like jumped upon because it's like, oh my gosh, this new thing. And as a bubble, I'm assuming that means it's going to burst eventually when it gets too full. Right.
It could deflate slowly, but I think they typically burst. Yeah,
the fuller and fuller it gets, it increases in price, but that's somewhat of an artificial increase. And eventually that's going to reverse, and a lot of people who jumped on. Speaking of the greater fool theory, people who are buying Bitcoin now are buying it from people who are selling it, obviously, right? Because there's not just more Bitcoin.
Right.
So there's people who are jumping on because they're like, oh my gosh, it jumped to like 11,000. I should get in on this. And then people sold it at 11,000, and they're just like, have fun, suckers. And then it drops to 9,000, and they're like, glad I sold it then. Is that part of that greater fool idea? Yeah,
it's sure, part of it.
Part of it.
Yes.
Part of it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, what you brought up it hits more home to me about the chasing winners. That's how a lot of retail investors lose a lot of their money, is chasing like past performance, because that's the best way we know to measure future performance. But it is not an indicator.
Doesn't that help the price go up when people are like buying it a ton?
It just depends what people are willing to pay for it.
Okay.
So the people at the margins determine the price. If that's what the spread is, the bid-ask spread. Like, there's an order book that's being constantly updated of people saying, I'm willing to buy 1, 2, 10, 100, 30, 13 Bitcoins at X price. And then somebody says, I'm willing to buy it at this.
Sell it.
Sorry, no. Okay, right. So on both sides, yeah. So somebody's willing to buy it at this price, somebody's willing to sell it at this price, and they just overlap. They just periodically overlap, and that's how the price is set. So there are some people that won't sell it if they have it until it goes to 13,000. What was your question again? Your direct question?
No, my direct question was...
I could just like babble on about it.
Excellent. No, my question was that if people are buying it when it's at a high price, is that kind of like the goal of people who jumped on at the beginning? Because when people are buying it at this high price, hoping to ride it higher, and it just tanks. If it weren't for these people jumping on, the people who bought it low, it wouldn't be able to sell it high, and it would just sort of rise and fall with the same owners. But the idea of making money in Bitcoin would be transferring it to cash before it falls back
Yeah,
down
I mean,
again, right?
well, see, you've hit on a very important point. I think that is overlooked, and I haven't said it out loud yet, but I think the cryptocurrency thing, technology, is a much more important topic than the Bitcoin cryptocurrency itself. Although it has the biggest market capitalization, the most money in all of cryptocurrencies, divided into each of the cryptocurrencies. There's like 1,000 of them. The most money is in Bitcoin, but
As
to your point
as
about
Baker Hero just said, it's the flagship for cryptocurrencies.
yeah, that's a great way to put
Exactly
it. It's
what
the
it is.
flagship. Yeah. So what you hit on is why. What are this is just anecdotal in my experience, but people talk about Bitcoin like, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to make money and I'm going to turn it into dollars because it's going to go up in terms of dollars.
Well, that's been true so far,
yeah,
right? Overall,
Yeah, overall, it's got something like 400% return in 2017 in terms of dollars. But like I said, this is anecdotal. But people say, "Well, I want to make a lot of money." It's just going to go up in price because people love Bitcoin. And then when I say, "Oh, well, you just want it because you think it will go up in price. You don't want it because you want to own cryptocurrency," they say, "Oh no, well, it could be the currency of the future. Like dollars are losing their value." And that's the point that just melds with my perspective so beautifully, is that people realize that the dollar is losing value, so they want to store their value somewhere, but Bitcoin's not the place for it.
so I guess my question would be, should you buy Bitcoin now?
Why do you want Bitcoin? That will
Because,
determine the answer to that question.
For the idea of paper money is going to lose value very quickly, very soon, and it will just be compared to Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin will artificially rise, not against goods, but against the dollar, because the price of goods will rise against the dollar as well. Everything will go up. Bitcoin will go up. And so like buying gold, it hedges against inflation because the price of gold goes up, but it still buys generally the same amount of wheat per se. Bitcoin will do the same thing, where it'll still buy the same amount of wheat per se, but you'll have to transfer it into the $10,000 a pound that wheat costs.
I think if you're looking
Hypothetically?
I think if you have money to play around with, diversifying in some cryptocurrencies is not a bad idea. But if you're looking to Bitcoin with the excuse of, or any other cryptocurrency with the excuse of, it's the currency of the future, and we're going to go away from dollars and euros and pounds, then it does not have the conditions for being a good currency. Currencies are a medium of exchange, a unit of account, and a store of value. That's just the traditional accepting. Like, it's tough to define money, but good money has those three things. A medium of exchange. It is used as a medium of exchange. It is used as a medium of account, and it can be used to store value.
It doesn't do any of those things yet,
It
does
doesn't
it?
do any of those things. It's not a medium of exchange. Nobody prices things in terms of Bitcoin and wants them strictly for having Bitcoin. Everybody that accepts Bitcoin turns it into dollars. They want the value, quote unquote, behind Bitcoin. It's not a unit of account. Like I said, nobody prices their merchandise in terms of Bitcoin. So that they can, like, you can't pay your rent in Bitcoin.
Essentially, if, like they said, you can go buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin because, like, you use your special Bitcoin account to, like, go to Starbucks and buy a cup of coffee. Starbucks, at the end of the day, doesn't, like, close their register by counting their dollars and their Bitcoin. They never actually
They
received
just
any
count
Bitcoin.
their dollars.
Because they
it.
never actually received any Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Well, I mean, they use it, they receive it, and then they turn it in, they send it over to BitPay. They pay them for, like, a convenience fee that you would pay for, like, someone using their credit card. They pay BitPay.
So Starbucks pays that fee?
Yes.
So if Starbucks were to
I'm sure
accept...
they take that into consideration when pricing their coffee, which you buy from them.
So the Starbucks would have to say, we accept Bitcoin?
That is the easiest way to communicate that you can, quote, buy things with Bitcoin.
Gotcha.
But more importantly, think about a long-term think about a long-term contract. Do you think anybody's buying fuel, jet fuel, paying rent, buying insurance with Bitcoin? No, nobody knows what one Bitcoin is going to be worth in a month from now. You can't.
Or at the end of the day today.
You can't write. Yeah, exactly. It lost 20% in like 12 hours or something. Went from
Yeah.
11,000 to 9,000.
See this.
Okay, sorry. Last point on Bitcoin I wanted to make though. No, I have 2 points. Okay, first point. So the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, they have the futures. They are one of the biggest futures exchanges. They just recently introduced futures on Bitcoin, and their rules are for the futures markets that if gold, wheat, oil, any of these commodities, they have circuit breakers is what they call them. So if the price goes up or down 7, 13, or 20%, then it will hit one of these levels. And 7 and 13% change up or down in value triggers a soft pause, and it will pause all trading for 2 minutes. So everybody's like, whoa. This
take a breath.
Like imagine,
everybody, take a
breath. Everybody, imagine if the price of oil changed 13% in the course of 24 hours. Everybody'd be like, or sorry, in the course of 24 hours, they'd be like, all right, pause. What's happening? Everybody, just think about what you're doing. And 20%, it will lock people out for 24 hours. It's a hard stop at the
at 20%. It will 24-hour hard stop.
Yeah. Correct.
That's way longer. You said 2 minutes before, right?
Yes.
2 minutes at 13%.
Yes, 7 and 13% are hard stops. 7%, 13%, 20%. 7%, 2 minutes. Everybody stop. 13%, everybody stop. Wait, 2 minutes. 20%, everybody stop.
All right.
Wait till tomorrow.
Day.
Yeah,
We're taking a holiday on trading on this.
So the future is it's a different asset. It's not a Bitcoin. It's a price. Sorry, it's an asset that is based on the price of Bitcoin. And because Bitcoin is so volatile, you don't know what it's going to be worth. And I think the futures contracts is a bad idea. But lastly, so the Federal Reserve, can we pull this up? The Federal Reserve president of the New York Fed, William Dudley. Where'd I go? There it is here.
Right.
Hello? Why is it all blue? Why is it doing this to me?
I don't know. I think it thinks you clicked on one of those top bars. Full screen that?
Right. Okay. William Dudley, president of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, said at a conference, the Fed is exploring the idea of its own digital currency. So just imagine
that's
a situation
great
where
idea.
That is depends which camp you're in. If you're the arguments I've heard for Bitcoin being the currency of the future is that it's unregulated, that there's a hard amount of it that can be created. 21 million Bitcoin is the maximum. By the way, what's the maximum number of Federal Reserve notes or dollars as we know them that can be created? What's the hard
we're trying to find out.
Yeah, we're
every
trying to
day
find,
we're
that's
trying
exactly
to find
right.
that number, and it's elusive.
Right. So just imagine the scenario, and then I'll wrap up. Just imagine this scenario where they say these things don't happen over a long period of time. I haven't said it yet. Imagine if all of your dollars had to be converted into Federal Reserve coins, but they were online coins. I should have picked a catchier name, but U.S.
So
coins.
Fedcoin,
sure. If
a cryptocurrency made by the Fed called Fedcoin.
One, how would they decide? Okay, you have $100,000 in savings. You're waiting to retire, and then they say, okay, so that's worth 20 Fedcoin, and you say, well, it's the law, so I have to do it or go to jail. Okay, I'll take the 20 Fedcoin. And it's now, okay, because we're concerned about your safety, you can no longer use dollars to transact anything. And like I said, the crypto, the blockchain technology is beautiful. It's distributed ledger technology that it's verified by every user. It's just a wonderful opportunity. But imagine if the government got its hands on it, you would have zero financial privacy. Think about that.
The blockchain is every computer that's hooked up to the blockchain has a live, up-to-date copy of where every Bitcoin is by virtue of having a receipt of every transaction.
Precisely.
Updated, like however many seconds it is as computers are running the blockchain. So all of that information would be stored in the Fedcoin blockchain, right? And so the Fedcoin blockchain, they would just know all of everyone's financial information, would they not?
What is more private? Like this is my area of study at college. What is more private than what you spend your money on? A few things, I suppose. But with regards to what you want to keep private from strangers, what you spend your money on is like just for you to know, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this scenario where your $100,000 turns into 20 Fed coins, a thought occurred to me just as I was researching just for this podcast. Price controls would be ultimately effective if they said you can't, like, they could deny you the ability to buy anything with the only legal tender currency, which they kind of do now because you can't buy cocaine, heroin, meth, except you kind of can because you have the ability to carry it around in your wallet. But if every transaction had to be approved by the one body that could be creating them, I don't know. It just bodes ill, I think. So I think it'll happen quickly
What
when it does happen.
I think's kind of like you said, the blockchain technology is a huge deal, but I think especially with this idea of them being like, oh, we'll create our own cryptocurrency because it's probably a good idea. People like the idea of having their money. They can transfer it with whoever they want. They don't have to ask permission. They can do it overseas to a country. Anyone who can access the internet can access their Bitcoin. They can trade it back and forth, and that's what's so beautiful about it. But that also means it's so easy to control because you can't transfer Bitcoin unless you're like handing somebody a physical like Bitcoin wallet. You can't transfer unless you're using the internet, right?
To my knowledge, Joe is the expert here.
If the federal government was like, all right, all cryptocurrency transactions are overseen by us, then they would have full control of your money. You can't stash it under your mattress. There are no Bitcoin banks where you can just kind of stuff it and leave it and hide it, right?
Hashtag net neutrality.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Okay, I see. I know how you feel now. I can only imagine when the comments are really whizzing by how much you feel like you're missing. I feel like I'm missing a lot.
Yeah.
Go
back to whatever she said. That's
you made
fine.
an astoundingly insightful point, and it truly brings up atavistic emotions. That's just horrible use of the word on my part. But it's interesting that a digital currency that is trying to be the currency of the future has its value defined by other currencies. What defines the value of currencies? What it can buy, right?
Yes, it against goods.
Money, and it is unique among goods in that rice is wanted for its consumption. Computers are wanted for their consumption. And consumption meaning the use of it, not the eating of it. Money is unique among things that people want in that it is wanted not for its consumption, but for its wantability.
Utility.
That is, no, not utility. Well, yeah, no, I mean, it's utility as a medium of exchange.
That's what I mean. It's wanted for its utility. People don't gather dollars because they're hoping they'll go up. They're gathering dollars because they know they can use them.
Right. So if these money issued by governments is a credit instrument, it is a claim on something. Like, money's what we want, commodities are what we need. Everybody needs stuff, and money gets you that stuff. So if government can decide how much Bitcoin is worth X amount of stuff, then they can just create that and have a claim on that stuff from nothing, which is the same exact problem we have with Federal Reserve notes, the currency supply we use today.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, if the price of Bitcoin goes up and the price of wheat and the price of gas, and
as
the price
measured
of
in
mac
what?
and cheese
As
as
measured
measured
in
in
what?
dollars,
Okay.
it might just mean that the dollars are going down, right? Not necessarily that Bitcoin going up against the dollar is not a great. Maybe we should have a chart that says how much wheat Bitcoin is worth, and then you can see it rise and fall. Because if you're just watching against dollars, the dollars might be changing. Because unfortunately, they're supposed to be.
Yeah, we don't really
standard.
have an established market for
They're
Bitcoin
supposed to
and
be-
wheat exchanges.
No, that's what I'm saying. There's the dollar's supposed to be the standard, but it changes too. Gold, because the gold standard is what we really should be comparing it to.
It's just a timeless classic. It's just one thing that people have wanted for as long as they've lived together. Civilly.
How about gold Bitcoins?
Yeah, okay. Final note. How come every visualization of Bitcoins which don't exist and float through the internet are colored gold or silver?
Because it's for other people's
Why aren't they
understanding.
green? Why aren't they colored green?
It's it's because people instinctively know money's worthless. Dollars are really worthless in the end. Like,
Yep,
bury
that's
me
right.
with my gold, not with my dollars. You know, wherever I'm getting, they'll take gold. Wherever I'm going, they might not take money. All right. Well, real quick before we end, we're getting short on time. So would you
Dang it.
would you
I
say
went
buy it?
over.
Yeah. Would you buy it? Not by much. We started this at 1/2 past.
I own some Ripple.
Would you? No,
That's-
I was going to say, would you, if people want to use it as a long-term hedge against other currencies falling,
Ripple.
would you recommend it buying it?
Say it again.
If people want to buy it for a currency,
Right.
like as a backup currency,
you
in
wanna
case,
u- if you
in
wanna-
case the price of it's only going up because the dollar's tanking,
Okay.
and they want something that's stable against wheat. I use that instead of gold because wheat is something you use, not as a currency,
Sure.
but use. Would you recommend somebody like buying some as like a, well, here's an
Well,
alternative?
like I said earlier, if you have money to play around with, then I would. Yeah.
Enough that you can deal with the fact it might disappear tomorrow.
Yeah,
Money that
don't
if it
put
disappeared
money into
tomorrow, you would be
Bitcoin.
sad, but you wouldn't be broke.
Well, yeah, no, don't put money that you can't afford to lose
There it is.
anywhere except gold.
But as far as an investment, but as far as an investment,
It's not an
all you would
investment; it's a
exactly.
speculation.
All
right
you would
now.
really be doing is filling the pockets of the people who bought low and are now selling high. Tomorrow, when it drops down to zero, they're
Or the
going to be like,
Bitcoin miners.
"Thanks for the
right?
money, people who bought it today."